She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you.
The debate between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris was a high-stakes showdown that laid bare the deep ideological chasm in American politics. From the outset, Trump launched a blistering attack on Harris, portraying her as an extreme leftist whose policies would fundamentally alter the fabric of American society. His strategy was clear: paint Harris as a dangerous radical who would lead the country down a path of economic ruin and social upheaval. Trump's assault on Harris's immigration policies was particularly fierce. He argued that her approach to border security was not just misguided, but actively harmful to the country's economic and social well-being.
Look, we're in for $250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
They threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
This unfiltered quote from the former president not only highlights his criticism of Harris's foreign policy approach, but also showcases his strategy of tying her to what he perceives as the Biden administration's failures. By questioning Biden's competence, Trump implicitly casts doubt on Harris's ability to lead, suggesting that she is part of a broader pattern of weak leadership. Throughout the debate, Trump repeatedly accused Harris of flip-flopping on key issues to appear more moderate, suggesting that her true beliefs were far more radical than she let on.
Fracking? She's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police? She's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Don't lie.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of.
This quote illustrates Trump's strategy of presenting Harris as inconsistent and untrustworthy. By listing multiple policy areas where he claims she has changed her stance, Trump attempts to undermine her credibility and suggests that her current positions are merely a facade hiding more radical intentions. Trump next paints a stark picture of the economic and social consequences of Harris's extreme policies.
Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead.
This eyebrow-raising quote highlights Trump's criticisms of Harris's alleged policies on transgender rights, gun control, and energy, particularly fracking. He paints a picture of economic consequences, especially in the energy sector, if Harris were to win the election. In her defense, Harris attempted to portray Trump as divisive and out of touch with the needs of the American people.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
Harris's response highlights her strategy of portraying Trump as a threat to democracy and emphasizing his electoral defeat. She attempts to turn the tables on Trump's accusations by suggesting that it is he, not she, who is out of touch with both the American people and international allies. As the debate turned to the contentious topic of abortion rights, Trump found himself on the defensive. Harris had accused him of flip-flopping on his stance and warned that he would sign a national abortion ban if re-elected. Sensing the need to clarify his position and counter Harris's claims, Trump launched into a passionate rebuttal. He sought to paint Harris and the Democrats as the true extremists on the issue, while positioning himself as a moderate who had achieved a long-sought conservative goal. With a mix of indignation and calculated political maneuvering, Trump responded,
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban, because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter, because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
In this quote, Trump shifts the conversation to the abortion issue, attempting to portray his stance as moderate and in line with constitutional principles. He accuses Harris of lying about his position, a tactic he employs throughout the debate to undermine her credibility. These separate quotes, properly contextualized, provide a clearer picture of the back-and-forth nature of the debate and the distinct strategies employed by each candidate. As the debate drew to a close, Trump delivered a final warning about the stakes of the election, painting a grim picture of America's future under Harris's leadership.
We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you.
This final quote encapsulates Trump's overarching message throughout the debate, that Harris and the current administration have weakened America's standing in the world, and that only his leadership can restore the country's greatness. By touching on multiple issues, from foreign policy to immigration, Trump attempts to leave viewers with a sense of urgency about the need for change. The clash between Trump and Harris highlighted the deep ideological divide in American politics, with each candidate offering starkly different visions for the country's future. Trump's aggressive attacks on Harris's alleged Marxist policies and her supposed weakness on national security and immigration stood in stark contrast to Harris's attempts to portray herself as a unifying figure focused on the needs of everyday Americans. As the debate concluded, it was clear that the upcoming election would be a referendum not just on two candidates, but on two fundamentally different conceptions of America's future and its role in the world.